There is a prediction floating around about where silver is headed, and the loudest voices on Wall Street are treating it like a joke, a punchline, a number so far above where the metal trades today that no serious person is supposed to say it out loud. But I want you to notice something. The same desks that laugh at that number are also very, very careful never to explain why it could actually happen. They mock the destination and hide the mechanism. And when powerful people mock a thing while refusing to explain it, that is usually the thing they are most afraid you will understand. If you are holding silver right now, or you have been thinking about it, this matters to you directly, because the story you have been told is that the price is set by supply and demand, fair and square, out in the open. That is not the whole truth. There is a second machine sitting on top of the real one, and it can hold a price down for a long time, longer than most people believe is possible. But it has one fatal weakness, and it has failed before. By the end of this, you will understand exactly what that weakness is, why it always breaks the same way, and why the people who profit from it are praying you never look this closely. So let me give you the first piece right now, because I do not believe in making you wait for it. For every ounce of real physical silver sitting in a vault, there are many, many paper claims to that same ounce floating around the market. Contracts, promises, positions, paper that behaves like silver on a screen, but is not silver in your hand. That gap between the paper and the metal is the entire ballgame. As long as almost nobody asks for delivery, the paper can pretend there is far more silver than there really is, and that pretending is what holds the price down. It works beautifully, right up until the day the metal runs low, and then it stops working overnight. I want to take you back to a moment when 8 of the most powerful nations on Earth tried to do exactly this, out in the open, with the full weight of their treasuries behind them. This is real history, and almost nobody your financial advisor talks to has ever heard of it. It is called the London Gold Pool, and it is the clearest lesson we have on how price suppression actually ends. In the years after the Second World War, the world ran on a system where the US dollar was tied to gold at a fixed price, and every other major currency was tied to the dollar. Stability by decree. The whole arrangement depended on one promise staying believable, that the official price of gold would hold. But by the middle of the 1960s, more and more people around the world looked at all the dollars being printed and quietly decided they would rather hold gold. Demand for the metal started to push the price up, and a rising gold price would have told the entire world that the dollar was worth less than the paper said. That was unacceptable to the men in charge. So 8 nations formed a pool. They agreed to pool their gold reserves and sell metal into the market whenever the price tried to rise, and buy it back when it fell, to pin the price exactly where they wanted it. Think about what that is. It is a group of governments spending real physical gold out of their own vaults to hold a price steady against what the market actually wanted to pay. For a while, it worked. The price sat still, the newspapers reported calm, and ordinary people were reassured that everything was under control. But here is the part they could not fix. Every time they defended that price, they had to hand over real metal. The paper promises were infinite, but the gold in the vaults was not. Every sale to hold the line drained the reserves a little more. The demand did not go away. It kept coming, wave after wave, and each wave cost them physical metal they could never get back at that price. They were not solving the pressure. They were paying to postpone it, and the bill was denominated in the one thing they were running out of. And then it broke. Not slowly, not with a warning. As the metal drained toward the bottom, the demand became a flood, and the nations realized they were about to empty their vaults defending a number. So they simply quit. Overnight, they walked away from the price they had sworn to defend. The suppression that had held for years ended in a matter of hours, and the price they had spent a fortune to cap was gone, because the one thing propping it up, a willingness to deliver real metal, had run out. The paper had promised what the vault could not deliver, and the moment that was exposed, the game was over. Now, sit with that, because it is the whole point of this video. The suppression did not end because someone changed their mind. It did not end because of a vote or a policy or a kind gesture. It ended because they ran out of metal. The physical always wins in the end, not because it is magic, but because you cannot deliver a promise you do not have. And that is the exact vulnerability sitting underneath the silver market today. Except silver has a problem gold does not. and I will get to why that makes this even more explosive in a minute. Let me pause here, because this is exactly the moment you should be thinking about your own position, not just the history. Here is something the financial media will not lead with. The central banks, the biggest and best informed buyers on the planet, have been buying physical gold at a pace we have not seen in generations, more than 1,000 tons a year for 3 straight years running, roughly double what they bought the decade before. Gold recently passed the euro to become the second largest reserve asset held by central banks, behind only the dollar. These institutions are not buying paper claims. They are taking delivery of metal and putting it in their own vaults, because a promise can be broken, and metal in your own hands cannot. And here is what almost nobody tells the ordinary retiree. You are allowed to do the exact same thing they are doing. There is a completely legal, established way to move a portion of the retirement savings you already have, your 401k or your IRA, into real physical gold and silver held in your name, without triggering taxes and without early withdrawal penalties. It is called a self-directed precious metals IRA, and it lets you hold the metal itself inside the account you already own. This is not some exotic thing reserved for insiders and institutions. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, this is available to you. I put together a free retirement protection guide that walks through exactly how it works, step by step in plain English. If you are watching this on your TV, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. It is free, there is no obligation, and honestly, understanding your options costs you nothing. Now, let me show you why silver, specifically, is where this pressure is building. Gold and silver both live under this paper machine, but silver has a second weakness that makes the suppression far more fragile. Here it is. Gold is hoarded. Silver is burned. Almost every ounce of gold ever mined still exists somewhere, in a vault, in a coin, in a piece of jewelry, because people save it. Silver is different. A huge share of the silver mined every year gets used up, consumed, scattered into things, and gone. There are tiny amounts of it in every solar panel, in electronics, in medical devices, in the guts of the modern world. Just a few grams here and a few grams there, dispersed so thinly that it is largely uneconomical to ever recover. It gets used once, and it is effectively gone. Now, stack that against demand. The silver market has run a supply deficit for several years in a row now, meaning the world uses more silver than it produces, year after year, and the difference gets pulled from above-ground stockpiles that are not infinite. This is the same structure as the London Gold Pool, except the drain is not a policy choice by 8 nations. It is baked into how the modern economy works. Every solar panel installed, every device built, quietly pulls a little more physical silver out of the pile that the paper price depends on. The vault is draining, slowly and relentlessly, whether anyone is watching or not. So now put the two things together, because this is the part that changes the whole picture. You have a paper market that suppresses the price by pretending there is far more silver than there really is. And underneath it, you have a physical supply that is being consumed and drawn down year after year, metal that does not come back. That is the London Gold Pool again, but this time nobody has to decide to abandon the price. The metal simply runs lower and lower on its own, until one day the paper promises meet a vault that cannot back them, and the number the suppression held down for so long is suddenly free to find its real level. And that is where the prediction Wall Street laughs at stops being a joke. Because if you understand that the price we see is a suppressed price, held down by paper that outnumbers the metal, then the real question is not why would silver go so high. The real question is where does silver go once the suppression breaks and the price finally reflects how little physical metal is actually left. The 3-figure prediction is not a fantasy about silver getting expensive. It is an estimate of what silver is worth without the paper thumb pressing on the scale. Let me stack one more piece of evidence on top, because I want you to see that this is not a one-time accident from the 1960s. It is a pattern that repeats whenever paper finally collides with metal. Look at what happens in any market where the promises on the screen far outnumber the thing they are supposed to represent. As long as almost nobody asks to be made whole in the real asset, the paper can drift wherever the biggest players want it to go. But let enough people demand the actual metal at once, and the machinery buckles. The price lurches violently against the ones who sold what they could not deliver, And suddenly, the people who wrote those promises are staring at losses that would wipe them out. And when that happens, the rules themselves start to bend. Limits appear, trading gets halted, the terms get quietly rewritten to protect the side holding the paper rather than the side holding the claim. Read that slowly. When the promise cannot meet the metal, it is the rules that give way, not the physical reality. That is the machine showing you its hand. It tells you, in the clearest possible terms, that the paper price and the physical metal are two different things, and when they finally meet, someone is going to be very surprised. And there is one more angle to this you should carry with you. We have also watched crowds try to force a silver squeeze the easy way, by piling into paper claims and exchange-traded products, thinking that buying silver on a screen would starve the shorts. It did not work. And the reason it did not work is the reason this entire video exists. When you buy a paper claim, you are not pulling metal out of the vault. You are, in effect, letting the system print another claim to sell you. Paper buying creates more paper. Only physical delivery, metal actually leaving the vault and going into someone's hands, drains the thing the suppression depends on. The central banks understand this perfectly, which is exactly why they take delivery and do not settle for a promise on a statement. The difference between owning a claim and owning the metal is the difference between being part of the crowd that gets shaken out and being part of the hands that are being paid to sell. Now, let me be honest with you, the way I would want someone to be honest with me, because there are people who will sell you a fairy tale, and I am not one of them. I cannot promise you a price, and I cannot promise you a date. Anyone who does is lying to you. Silver is volatile, genuinely volatile, more than gold. It can drop hard and fast, even when nothing about the underlying story has changed. We have watched the paper machine flex its muscles in living memory. There have been episodes where the rules governing these markets were tightened suddenly, margin requirements jacked up, and silver fell around 30% in a matter of days, while nothing about the actual metal, the actual supply, the actual demand had changed one bit. That is the machine reminding everyone who is still in charge of the short term. So this is a case, not a guarantee, and nothing I am telling you is personal financial advice. But understand what that volatility actually is. It is noise on top of the real story, not the real story itself. The paper market can shove the price around for a day, a week, a season. What it cannot do is manufacture physical metal it does not have. The London Gold Pool could dictate the price right up until the vault ran dry, and not 1 hour longer. Every violent shakeout in silver is the machine doing the only thing it can still do, scaring the metal out of weak hands and into strong ones. And the strong hands know exactly what they are collecting. Which brings me to how you should actually think about your own position, practically, if any of this resonates. The lesson of every one of these episodes is the same. Own the metal, not the paper. A paper claim is only as good as the promise behind it, and we have just spent 20 minutes on what happens to those promises when the metal runs low. Second, size it so that a shakeout can never force your hand. The people who get hurt are not the ones who are wrong about the long story. They are the ones who owned too much, got frightened by a sharp drop, and sold their real metal into the very shakeout the machine engineered. If a 30% dip would force you to sell, you own too much. And third, do not sell into the panic. That is precisely when the metal is changing hands from people who needed to sell to people who wanted to buy. The most silver always trades at the bottom, from need, not from opinion. Now here is the part one I have been building toward, the part that matters most, and almost nobody will say it to you plainly. Look at who already understands this. The central banks are quietly taking delivery of physical metal at a record pace. The list of countries doing it is getting longer, not shorter, with new buyers joining every year. The smartest, best-informed money on the planet is not laughing at the prediction. It is positioning for it, 1 ton at a time, into its own vaults, where no one can freeze it or default on it. That is the smart money. It already sees what you are seeing right now. And the mainstream? The pension funds, the financial media, the advisor who put your entire retirement into the same 3 funds as everyone else, they have not caught on. They are still treating silver as an afterthought, still repeating that the 3-figure number is a joke. That gap between what the smart money is already doing and what the mainstream still refuses to believe is the single most valuable thing in this entire video. Because by the time it becomes obvious to everyone, By the time silver leads the evening news and every advisor is suddenly recommending it, the easy part of the move will already be behind us. The people who understood it early will have positioned early. Everyone else will be buying from them, higher. Nobody is going to call you. Nobody sends you an invitation to the beginning of one of these moves. There is no announcement, no alert, no friendly heads up from the institutions that are already loading up. The London Gold Pool did not warn the public before it collapsed the price it had defended for years. It just happened, overnight, and the people who understood the mechanism beforehand were the only ones who were not caught flat-footed. Being early does not feel exciting. It feels quiet, even lonely, because nothing urgent seems to be happening. That quiet is exactly the opportunity. So let me answer the question in the title, honestly and directly. Will silver reach that number Wall Street refuses to repeat? I cannot promise you it will, and I will not. But I can tell you that the number is not crazy. It is a reasonable estimate of what silver is worth once you strip away a paper suppression that has failed before and is built on a physical supply that is quietly running down. Wall Street will not repeat the prediction, not because it is impossible, but because saying it out loud would mean explaining the machine. And explaining the machine is the last thing they want you to understand. If you have watched this all the way to the end, you are exactly the person I made the next offer for. Beyond the free guide, I hold a free one-on-one educational web conference specifically for viewers with $100,000 or more in retirement savings who watch the full video and mention it. It is not a sales pitch. It is a real conversation about your specific situation, your accounts, and whether any of this fits your plan. And here is the honest reason to do it now rather than later. The best time to make a calm, clear decision about protecting what you built is precisely when nothing feels urgent, when you are not reacting to a headline or a crash. That window, the calm one, is the one that is open right now. Once the story is on every screen, the calm is gone, and so is the easy part of the move. If you're watching on your TV, scan the QR code on your screen. If you're on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. Bring your questions. That is what the time is for. Remember the pool. 8 nations, all the power in the world, spending real metal to hold a price they had sworn to defend, right up until the vault ran low and the whole thing ended in an afternoon. The paper always promises more than the metal can deliver, and when those two finally meet, the metal wins. It always has. The only question that matters is which side of that moment you want to be standing on when it arrives. Nobody is going to send you an invitation. Consider this yours.